about these radical feminists who are as aggro as the trans activists and are like defending them with this rabid fervor that I don't understand. Don't they realize that they're defending biological men? And most of these feminists are diehard men haters. Not all of them. I'm talking about the like aggro, super, like those kind. What's the deal with this?
Okay, well, first, we got to address the term biological men because people are going to go nuts.
Okay, yes, let's have this conversation.
Cool. So first, what's the purpose of language? Because there's an argument over words, right? What's a biological man? What's a woman?
Okay, yes.
So?
Language is to define. It's for us to communicate and understand and to define what we're talking about.
Right. And can language serve its purpose if a word changes definition every 2 seconds?
No.
If a definition is fluid and random, what happens to language?
Oh, then it is a cluster F.
Right. So definitions in a language or words in a language have to have clear boundaries and lines that they do not cross so that everyone knows what we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
If those words are not firm and solid and stable and reliable, maybe with a little wiggle room, we're in trouble.
Right.
Like maybe you take some liberties in poetry, but for day-to-day language, we really do need these words to mean something clear and defined.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there's no point of language or communication.
Yeah.
So if we take the word square hopefully has a clear definition that everyone can agree on for the most part. 99% of people can agree on the definition of a square.
Yes.
It's not a rectangle. It's not a circle. It's not a triangle. It's a square.
Yeah.
And when we're having a day-to-day conversation or we're having a debate or an argument, if I say, let's make the table square, and you say, let's make the table round, it's fine. We're both clearly communicating with our well-defined words. And we're not, well, I don't know. Does a square feel like a circle today? Or does a circle feel like a square today? I don't know. You don't know, right?
Yes.
You see, it's super important.
Yes.
And it's normal. It's a normal part of language and conversation that we have defined words. Now, what happens if I take that square and I round the corners a little bit? Is the square now a circle? Like I performed surgery on the square, right? I've shaved off the corners.
Yeah. Okay. It's still not a circle.
So it's still a square.
Yeah.
What if I do it further and it's even rounder? And now it's like almost just like a little blob. But still it's kind of like a square, like a thumbnail or something.
It's still a square.
Okay. And what if I shave it off even further and it's like almost a circle?
Then it's almost a circle.
But someone else who comes in and looks at that might be like, oh, nice circle. You kind of drew it rough, but
right.
They might see it as a circle.
Fair enough.
So now our definition of a square, every time we like go outside the lines or move towards another definition, it becomes more confusing. Mm-hmm. And eventually, if we change it enough, that square is now a circle, but no one's going to call it a square. It's going to be called a circle because that's the definition of circle. We came up with these definitions ages ago. They still stand today. They still help everyone everywhere create and build and draw and construct, and we all use them. And anytime it's in between a square and a circle, we admit that's in between a square and a circle.
Yeah.
That's either a rounded square or that's a squared off circle.
Yes.
Right. You could do the same thing with red and yellow on a color spectrum or in a pencil case, whatever. You've got red, which is clearly red, and everyone knows it's red. We can all agree on it's red, besides for a few exceptions like colorblind people.
Right.
And then we have yellow, and it's clearly yellow. No one's arguing. Everyone on the planet, construction people, scientists, men, women, children, we can all identify that as yellow. It's clearly in the boundaries, and the definition of yellow exists, right? These two colors exist. But what happens if I take that shade of red and I nudge it towards yellow?
It becomes orange.
And what happens if I take that shade of yellow and I nudge it towards red?
It becomes orange.
Right. And so two people could come in and see that orange and be like, oh, you turned that red into orange, man. Mm-hmm. And the other person can come in and say, oh, you turned that yellow into orange. And they're both staring at it. And it's like, no, that used to be red. No, that used to be yellow. No, that used to be red. No, that shade of orange used to be red.
Yes.
Because it's in between.
Yes.
And that's why we have a name for in between.
It's orange.
Because we don't have enough definitions for this and this.
Right.
So then you can have orange.
Right.
But sometimes we don't have a name or a definition for that word, like the squared circle or the rounded square. Like,
yeah,
we're just like slapping adjectives together to try and define something that's been undefined, and we don't really have a term for it, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So this is kind of what we're dealing with now. For thousands of years, we've had men and women. two genders with clear definitions and clear boundaries. And how do we form those boundaries? Like, how do we decide what a square is, and how do we decide what a circle is? How do we decide what is red, and how do we decide what's yellow? Maybe with red and yellow, at first it was just by sight, but as science grew and we can measure frequencies of light, maybe scientists came up with a line where everyone agrees that now this is past red into orange, and now this is past orange into yellow. Like, maybe it's a certain frequency of light or color of light that sets the boundary. Do we have that for men and women? For years, it's been chromosomes and hormones and genitalia and secondary sex characteristics. And we do this for various species, right? What are the traits of a female peacock? And what are the traits of a male peacock? What are the traits of a rooster? What are the traits of a chicken? And then for some species, when we can see that they don't have the sexual dimorphism or the binary genders, like an amoeba, we don't define it that way. We don't have language for that because they don't have two genders. But for many species, they have two genders and we define them clearly. Circle and square, red and yellow, man and woman.
Yes.
And so these definitions have held up fine for language for thousands of years. And until someone's figured out a way to change chromosomes and change hormones and change genitalia and change secondary sex characteristics all at once and actually get into the other category, I don't know if we should be swapping labels and changing the language and undefining things that were previously defined. It just causes problems and no one can communicate and everyone's arguing. And what is a woman? And everyone's fighting. And now society doesn't know. Should we build this kind of bathroom or that kind of bathroom? Should we have this kind of sport or that kind of sport? Like it throws everything off when you out with the definitions of language. And I'm fine with language evolving and I'm fine with definitions changing. Like red might change to orange, might change to yellow, and maybe they move the frequency markers of like where these things count. I don't know. I'm open to it, but it shouldn't be done willy-nilly and it shouldn't be done at random and it shouldn't be done just because you feel like it. It makes sense to have a reasonable purpose to changing these definitions and one that benefits everyone using the language as a whole. Why do we improve a language? To help everyone using the language.
Yeah, agreed.
If we don't have a name for the color in between yellow and red, that's a problem. It's going to be awkward. We're going to have real struggles discussing this.
Yes.
So we need to evolve the language and we need to create orange. Fine. But do we have that situation or that problem here with men and women, with trans? Maybe, maybe not. That's why they have non-binary. But now they have a million different things, intersex and non-binary and trans woman and trans guy. And so my point is, I'm good either way. I'm sure when orange first came around, there was some backlash.
Right.
But eventually everyone came around and like, yeah, we need a word for orange. I kind of wish there was a word for a squared circle or a rounded square. Like, I don't know what that shape is. I don't think we have a word for it. Maybe we need one. I have trouble. I have to say 50 syllables to explain the concept I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But those changes to language, I don't believe should be made by like angry protesters who are pissed off that, the world's not the way they like or whatever.
Agreed.
I believe those changes should come from a clear problem needing a clear solution with people putting their heads together and agreeing that this is an issue. And until then, I would prefer to use the definitions that have stuck around and been reliable for communication.
Agreed.
Personally.
As do I.
And I feel it's a totally reasonable stance. So for our conversation here, I'm fine to use biological male based on chromosomes, hormones, genitalia, and secondary sex characteristics. And I'm fine to use biological woman based on chromosomes, hormones, genitalia, and secondary sex characteristics.
Sure. And I would be happy to show them what a biological man and woman look like, but this is an OnlyFans, so we're just going to use language to describe it.